Hi everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Sherry and welcome to my Gigi After 50 YouTube channel. If you have watched any of my videos before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new to this channel, welcome to you. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my DNA results from 23andMe. I was really excited to get them. Before I share them, I just want to quickly say that as an African American, like many African Americans, I know very little about my heritage beyond maybe 2 grandparent levels out. So we're talking great grandparents. I was blessed to have known my great grandparents on my mother's side, and I know about some of my other great grandparents and great grandparents based on verbal history from family members. I did have a great aunt who reportedly said numerous times through the years that we had Irish heritage. So aside from that, I've never known anything about a certain group that I descended from. So without further ado, I'm going to share my results with you. So firstly, 23andMe provides high-level information about your heritage. And for me, they broke it down into 4 categories. So my first and biggest DNA percentage category is that I am 58.9% sub-Saharan African. And then I am 38.9% European, 1.4% East Asian and Native American, and 0.9% of my DNA is unassigned, which apparently means unknown. So 23andMe also provides more specific information for each of these categories. So circling back and looking at my 58.9% sub-Saharan African category, I can see a little bit more information about how that breaks down. So I am 16.2% Nigerian, 15.8% coastal West African, 5.6% Senegambian and Guinean, 5.4% Congolese, 0.3% Sudanese. And then there are these super duper generic categories that frankly are a little disappointing to me. So 0.2% African hunter-gatherer, 10.1%, that's a huge percentage, broadly West African, 1.9% broadly Congolese and Southern East African, and then 3.4% broadly Sub-Saharan African. Then as I look at my European heritage breakdown, so the 38.9% European breaks down to 17.5% British and Irish, 4.6% French and German, 1.3% Scandinavian. I am 0.1% Iberian, and it's my understanding that the Iberian category represents Spain and Portugal. And then we have more broadly stats, 9.5% broadly Northwestern European, 2.0% broadly Southern European, and then 3.9% broadly European. Again, kind of disappointed looking at that because that doesn't tell me a lot. And then my third category, which is 1.4% East Asian and Native American, it breaks down to 0.9% Native American. And then these other categories that I'm absolutely floored about, 0.1% Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, and Myanmar. And then I don't know if that's supposed to be Myanmar. Anywho, 0.3% broadly Chinese and Southeast Asian, and then 0.1% broadly East Asian and Native American. And then my last category was that 4th category that was unassigned, 0.9%, so no need in even sharing that. And thank you, by the way, for enduring the super duper quick statistical breakdown for all of that. I think my bottom line with regard to my 23andMe DNA results is that I found it quite interesting to see and learn a little bit more about my heritage and where I come from or who I come from. I was absolutely disappointed that so much of my DNA is so generic. The information they provided is so generic. There's one last piece of information that 23andMe shared that I also want to share with you, and I found this probably to be more interesting than anything else, and that is that they provided information regarding my win story. And what I mean by my win story is they provided information on the generation range where I'm likely to have had a single relative who descended from these populations. So looking at this graph, we can see that for my British and Irish heritage of 17.5%, my generational correlation is that I am likely to have had a grandparent, great-grandparent, or second great-grandparent who was likely born between 1850 and 1910. And I find that to be fascinating. That's far more helpful to me than just seeing sort of random percentages without them being tied to like when. Also looking at this information, you can see how that breaks down for my African heritage, or my biggest block of African heritage. So the 16.2% Nigerian and 15.8% coastal West African, that heritage appears to be a little bit further out for me, if you will. So it looks like I am likely to have had a great-grandparent, a second great-grandparent, or a third great-grandparent who was born 1820, between 1820 and 1880. And the rest of these I'm not going to go through in major detail. The first two rows are my biggest DNA percentage buckets. One thing I do want to mention with regard to this information, though, it was great to see it, but still a little disappointing because this win story, if you will, only captures 68% of my DNA. 23andMe did not provide this information for any of my broadly categories. And as you'll recall, in looking at my statistical breakdown, I had many broadly categories. So that added up to almost 32% of my DNA that I don't know anything with regard to the win story, if you will. So I remain terribly curious about my DNA. I think that 23andMe provided a start, if you will. And so I'm very interested in taking some additional DNA tests, you know, maybe Ancestry.com, maybe AfricanAncestry.com, and so forth. And if I decide to do that, I'll certainly post that information on YouTube, and we'll probably also include comparison information relative to the information that I share today. So with that said, if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. Please consider subscribing to my channel and clicking the notification bell. And until next time, peace and blessings to you and yours.